Fruit and primary, fruit and conditioning.
Or maybe both.
Let's find out what the differences are. All right, so this one's a long time coming. People have asked for this for a while. We said we were gonna do it like 3 years ago, almost.
Yeah.
And we just never got around to it, partially because it does require
It's a big mess.
making 3 gallons at a time. We don't drink that much at one time to make 3 gallons worthwhile. But you know what? It is an important thing. We have the fruit now, so we were like, you know what? It's time. So the way we're gonna do this, we are going to make 3 meads, okay? One mead is going to have all the fruit. The next one is going to have half the fruit. The third one is going to have no fruit. And then once they're done fermenting, we're gonna remove all the fruit, we're gonna add back half the fruit, and we're gonna add all the fruit.
That was really confusing, but you'll understand better once you see the process.
A lot more sense as we go along. So let's start by weighing out some honey. So let's put a scale under this guy.
So the honey that we're using today was actually gifted to us. It was a huge, and I'm not kidding,
60 pounds.
60 pounds of honey.
It sat for a while.
Tony, thank you so much for this very generous gift. Now this honey is a Nebraskan honey by a beekeeper known as Draper's.
And we're doing 2 pounds in each one, as close to exactly 2 pounds as possible, because I don't want many variables here. I don't want any variables other than the fruit. All right, so I did 2 pounds, 1.6 ounces. So guess what? They're all gonna be 2 pounds, 1.6 ounces now, because it's so much easier than trying to take some back out. You know, as I was saying, don't put in too much. I put in too much. Okay, they all have 2 pounds, 1.6 ounces. My hands are sticky. Means I'm gonna go dip them in turbos, because everything we used was sanitized in
the red bucket of sanitization!
Which is turbos. It's the red, yeah, you get it. It's a big bucket that holds sanitizer fluid. I'll be right back. All right, so the next step is really to mix up some of this honey. So we're gonna put in half a gallon of water in each fermenter and give it a good mix through.
This is warm water that will help the mixing process.
By warm, she means like blood temperature, you know, roughly 100 degrees or so. Okay, and the last half gallon goes into the last fermenter. The idea here is we want to keep all 3 equal in dignity until there's reason to not be equal in dignity. So now we mix. Sanitized spoon. You might be wondering why I'm doing it this way. If I had just put all the water in, it'd be harder to mix. So this way, it's easy to do. And with the warm water, it helps the honey to dissolve much more quickly. We're mixed. We have some aeration going on too. That's the foaming. You want that in the beginning phases of fermentation. Next, we're going to measure in the fruit. Now, what we did is we have 2 4-pound bags of mixed berries from Kirkland. Picture will be up on the screen for you.
Costco.
Yeah.
It's Kirkland brand from Costco.
Oh, phew, threw me off for a second. Made me think I said the wrong thing. What we did is broke that into 6 pieces or sections, right? Each one would be 1.33 pounds. So the one that gets everything in primary gets 2 sections. The one that gets both gets 1 section. This is today. And then the one that gets it in conditioning gets none today. So makes it really, really simple. And then in the second half, we do the exact opposite. So really simple. Let's throw this guy on the scale. All right, and so here is our lovely thawed out berry mash. Yeah. Okay, for those curious, yes, this was frozen fruit that we just left to thaw for several hours and then put it into the fridge. So it's still actually quite cold. I didn't want it to come to room temperature. I just didn't want any nasties growing on it or anything like that. So I'm gonna weigh out 2.66 pounds and probably slop them all over the place, just so you know. All right, 2.66 pounds in that one. So that is the primary. And now we're gonna go on to both, and this one's gonna get 1.33 pounds. So some panic hit me as we were doing this, because we just went off the bag saying 4 pounds, which breaks down to 1.33. But I was like, what if they're not exactly 4 pounds? Well, it turns out it is exactly 4 pounds. We have 1.33 left after putting in 2.66 in that one. That is exactly how much was in there. So
that was impressive.
So yay, science, it's a thing. Okay, now the last one, which is the conditioning only, gets no fruit today. Okay, that's
no fruit for you.
Yeah, that. But what we want to do now is put in the rest of the water, mix these through, and start getting some readings. All right, normally we would make a 1 gallon batch size, and that would include everything that's in it. In this case, we're actually trying to be a little bit more precise. So we're using 1 gallon of water total with the 2 pounds, 1.6 ounces of honey. and the berries. So obviously the one with berries in it is going to have more volume today than the one with nothing in it, but they all are essentially a 1 gallon of water batch size, okay?
Did you say the 2
pounds, 1.6 ounces.
of honey?
Honey.
Okay.
Why? What did I say?
I don't.
It sounded right in my head. We'll find out in editing.
There you go.
Yeah.
So this is a test and not really a recipe so much. We're testing and trying to keep it as simple as possible so that we can differentiate between the flavor profiles that the fruit is extracting into the brew, be it primary, secondary, or both.
Right.
So we're not going to add anything else to this other than our nutrient, which is Fermade O.
And I know somebody's going to freak out because I just took the spoon from all three and put it into this one. Let me give you an indication of just how much sugar is in this fruit, okay? Per pound, this fruit will give 3.4 points. Not 1.034. No, 1.003 per pound. So this one maybe has 7 or 8 points worth of gravity total from the fruit. This one has 4. How much do you really think stuck to that spoon? Come on, like nothing. I should have done it the other way around. You are right though. Anyway, so they have been mixed.
Are
What's
we
next?
putting the nutrient in?
Yeah,
or taking the reading first.
I'm going to put the nutrient in first because there is a tiny bit of water.
Okay.
For nutrient today, we're using Fermade O. I'm using about 1.5 grams, not about, 1.5 grams in a little bit of water. The water wasn't measured exactly, but it's pretty darn close to like an ounce.
So
okay?
it's 1.5 grams?
1.5 grams
Okay.
Fermade O. And I'm just going to dump these in. Yes, I prepared each one individually. Science, folks. Okay, now I want to mix them again. I'm going to start with this one this time, so I don't cross-contaminate. It feels very full.
So as you can tell by this one, it was a really good idea that we chose to use the 1.4 gallon little big mouth bubbler size fermenters because we would have a big mess already. So now that we have the nutrient in, everything has been mixed, we're going to take our gravity readings. Today, what implement are we using, Brian?
We're using my brand new digital refractometer from Hanna Instruments. They sent us this and we actually did a video with it in it that you may or may not have seen yet. It was the concentrated apple wine. So if you haven't seen it yet, that's coming out soon. If you have seen it, well, this is just going to be a reminder. We're using the digital refractometer because it disturbs the brew the least of any of them. And for original gravity readings, it's so ideal because I can just get 2 little drops in here, works beautifully. So I already calibrated the machine. I'm just going to take my 2 drops, put them in there, give it a read. 16.2 bricks. Let me figure that out though, 16.2 bricks. This is the only downside to using the digital refractometer is I do have to make the conversion. It is 1.066 specific gravity.
Do you want me to sanitize that?
Yeah, let's just rinse it out quick. Then on to the both, which obviously we'll get a little bit of a difference from having the sugars in there, but I don't think it's going to be significantly different. 16.6, it actually is different. Small variations in water level can do that too. 16.6, that is a 1.068 original gravity. Just enough that some of the juice that was in there, which she tried to distribute the juice equally to, so it already got in. Usually the sugars will take some time to extract, so I'm not surprised to see 2 points difference, because there's about 4 points difference, really. All right, now for the one with all the fruit in it, and I expect this one is going to be just a little bit higher than the last one because it has a little bit more sugars in it. And let's find out. 16.3. It's actually slightly lower than this one. Might just be that the juices didn't dissolve yet. That gives us 1.066 original gravity. So 1.066 and 1.068. They are, for all intents and purposes, pretty much the same. But that's not really the point. We know that in the end, the one with all the fruit might give just a touch higher alcohol content, only because the sugars are going to be fermented. This one should be just a little bit behind that, and then this one should be just a little bit behind that. Again, like I said, we're talking maybe like 8 to 9 points total, which might be 1% total ABV at the end.
But we'll know for sure when this test is complete.
Yes. Next, we have yeast. For this, we are using
Premier Blanc
by Red Star. And what I did is I measured out into 3 bowls, 1 whole packet. So we're going to be using 1/3 of a packet of yeast for each one. Stir it around a little bit. Get them acclimated and stuff. Okay. Off the spoon. Yeast love to stick to the spoon and the sides of the fermenter.
Everything.
It's almost like they don't want to get into the liquid, but they do. Trust me, they really do. They just don't know it yet.
For some reason, I have...
Go home.
Yeah, get your home.
It's your home. Don't you want to go home? Does anybody get that reference? Come on, you got to get that reference. You too good for your home.
All right.
And now we're just going to stick the lids on. And in goes the airlocks. I can't say enough good things about the airlocks on these. They make a secure, tight fit every time, and we don't really worry about things popping out or anything like that. They come with their own bung, which is wonderful. Just the plastic to silicone connection seems to work really well. Plus it's rubber, actually, because these are rubber stoppers.
You stole my towel!
So I'd also like to point something out. Today, 12 years ago, Derica said that she would put up with me for the rest of her life. So, you know.
In front of people and everything.
Yeah, happy anniversary, baby. What's next?
They're gonna sit.
Right. So, we have a mead with all the fruit, half the fruit, and no fruit. What's going to happen in the next step is we're going to rack it, and rack it. We're going to add all the fruit, half the fruit, and none of the fruit.
Clear as mud, right?
See you in a couple weeks. Okay, so it's been about 2 weeks. We're seeing airlock activity slowing down across the board, maybe not totally stopped, so it's time to get their first readings in. And that's all we're doing today is a first reading, just to see where they're at.
So we have all the fruit in primary here. We have half the fruit in primary, half the fruit to come later in secondary here, and all the fruit to go in secondary or conditioning here.
All right, normally this is where I'd remove the lid and take one of those observation things. This time we have 3 of them. For the sake of expediency, we're not going to. So I'm just going to jam the baster down in there. There's all kinds of fruit in this one. Lovely color. Look at that color. There's a few viewers out there, you know who you are, that really like red brews. This is going to be one for you. Now, I don't expect that this should take a long time to finish fermenting because they only started at 1.066 and 1.068. This particular sample is sitting at 0.996. So let me take a note. We're going to rinse out the apparatus in between each so that we get clean samples each time. 0.994 for that one. This one has no red color.
It has no fruit.
I'm merely pointing out my observations. 0.996. Okay, they all fermented pretty consistently. One thing I do want to talk about is when they started up. I would have thought that the ones with the fruit might start a little sooner, but I mean, if there was a difference, it was minutes rather than hours. Literally, within a few hours, these were all bubbling happily away. Now, the one where we put all the fruit in the beginning bubbled over and made a mess. This one with half and half, I think did a little bit, but not nearly as bad. But this one was a mess for a couple of days. The one with no fruit, obviously no fruit spilled out, but it also didn't bubble out and all over the place. I think it's because all that fruit just jams up in there and it just causes pressure buildup.
Also, you may notice that there's a color differentiation between the fruit. That is because blueberries, I believe, have a good amount of their pigment in their skin, so they retain their color, where the raspberries, most of the color is actually in the pulp, in the juice,
yeah,
in
they turn
the fruit.
like white.
And so when they leach out those things, they kind of get gray and icky looking. It's totally normal, nothing to worry about.
Also, I did give all of them a swirl, even the one with no fruit. I swirled them equally just to maintain equality. Not that it really matters that much, but I wanted to make sure that fruit cap stayed wet on these two, so this one got a shake too. So what are we gonna do now?
We're gonna let them sit.
1 more week. See if they move at all in gravity. Probably not, since they're below 1. But hey, you know what? It's a safe thing to do to take 2 readings and make sure it doesn't change over the 2-week period before you take the next step. And we'll see you then. All right, it's been another week. So now we want to do our verification gravity reading to make sure that these are really done. When we last left them, they were at 0.996 and 0.994. So I'm reasonably certain they're done. But, you know, it's good to know for sure. The one with all the fruit in primary is at 0.994. It was at 0.996 before, so I'm going to say it's done. The one where we put half the fruit in now, we're gonna put half the fruit in later, is at 0.994, which is exactly where it was last time. And the final one, the one that had no fruit in it yet, but will have all the fruit in secondary, is at 0.992. So that dropped a little bit more, actually. That one went from 996 to 992. Let me just verify that. 992.
So at this point, we're going to rack all three of these. And because we have a limited supply of the little big mouth bubblers, and we know, at least in these two instances, we're going to be adding fruit again, we need to reuse these. So we're going to rack to our pitcher, and then I'm going to clean out the fermenters really well, and then we're going to rack back into the pitcher, or into the fermenters.
So through the magic of television, you'll see when that's all done. That was a lot of racking, but I want to show you guys something. This is really interesting. If you look at the levels, there's just a little bit more in the one that has half the fruit. And then there's a little bit more than that in the one that has double the fruit. So the fruit does exude a little bit of juice to it. We didn't mash anything or squeeze it. We're not doing that. That way it's all consistent, because how do you know if you squeezed it consistently and all that? We don't want to go there. So instead, we racked it till it stopped coming out, okay? And that's the first racking, so it's not really all that critical. Now let's move on to the next step. Okay, so first we're gonna start adding some more fruit. And because this is now secondary or conditioning phase, we're gonna start with the one that had none put in the first time. So this one gets 2 sets, or 2.66 pounds, or 2 pounds, 10.56 ounces, however you like to do that. There's a grams number too that I'll put below. But we have here another bag of the same fruit, 4 pounds, and it's thawed. So I'm gonna just try to grab, fruit and juice and not make too much of a mess.
In case you're curious, yes, that ladle has been sanitized.
Okay, 2 pounds, 10.56 ounces in there. I'm gonna take this off the scale so we can put the lid on it, because it'll get confusing. Now again, just to refresh, this is the one that had no fruit in primary, so that's why it's getting 2.66 pounds now, because the one that had all the fruit in primary got 2.66 pounds then. So these are the opposites. And then we have
this one,
the Goldilocks edition. And I call it the Goldilocks edition because it has a little bit of each, so it didn't sway one way or the other. And I think this is a really interesting test to see. And what we're looking for here is 1 pound, 5.28 ounces, or 1.33 pounds. Again, the metric will be here. It ended up at 1 pound, 5.5 ounces. So we do have 0.2 extra ounces in here. Just saying, the whole test is a bust now.
So now what are we gonna do?
We're gonna let them sit. And how long? See, this is gonna be a big determining factor in the strength of that juice and flavor. So I'm thinking this way. This was started on August 11th. Today is August 30th. That gives us 19 days. So my thought is, what if we let them sit 19 days on the fruit, and then we rack them all? That way it's equal amounts of exposure to the fruit on both sides.
I like that idea.
It almost sounds scientific, doesn't it? Should work out. Let's find out, and we'll see in 19 days. Okay, so it's been 19 days, and that means it's time for us to taste these, because we can go through all the racking and all that kind of stuff, but does it even matter? I want to know what's the difference.
Right, that's the point of this video, is what they taste like, not what the process is.
Right.
So let's get to it.
So what we've done is we have 2 Glencairns for each of these. I have here the one that only had berries added in conditioning. This had them in both, and this had them in primary. So we have 2 glasses for each one. And what we're gonna do is just grab a baster and stick it in there and take a sample for each one.
And then very carefully on the bottom, double taped so that we can't see
C,
B,
B,
and
should be
P. So that way we don't know, but we'll know once we know.
Yeah, that. Might as well make it a good one. Have a good day, right? In between sample taking, we are giving it a dunk in Star San. Not necessarily to sanitize it, more just to rinse it out so that there's no cross-contamination of the flavors. Because, we're talking small amounts here. So the first thing I want to say is, if you look across this, it's very difficult to tell anything. The colors are all the same as far as I can tell. Looking down through them, clarity is like so close to the same thing. I think if you showed me one, showed me another, I wouldn't be able to tell them apart. That's a really good sign for the type of test that we're about to do. We have 2 of each type. I'm gonna leave the room, Derek is gonna mix them up. Then she's gonna leave the room, and I'm gonna mix them up. And then we're gonna taste them and see if we can tell which is which.
I'm not gonna do an elaborate thing, I'm just gonna do that so they're at least not paired. Because who knows what Brian's gonna do? Does anybody really know what Brian's gonna do? I doubt Brian even knows what Brian is gonna do, though he probably does. And it's some sneaky something, but I'm done.
All right, so let's just mix them a little bit. I feel like we're doing the 3-card Monty with 6 cards. And then all right, this is going to be sort of an informal scientific, semi-scientific adjacent thing, all right? What we're going to do is try to see what tastes the same. So if we can pick out which 2 are the same across the board between the 2 of us and see if we can guess which one is which. It's actually going to be more difficult because we don't really know which one would be more fruity or which one wouldn't be. There's some common ideas that people have had, but it's hard to know what people would really say. So let's just start on that end and go across and see if we can
Do we need water for palate cleansing, or is it we're just going to
We probably should do water for palate cleansing. We have water for palate cleansing.
Awesome.
We're married. We're sharing the water. Deal with it. I thought my palate was pretty cleansed already.
It wasn't. All right. I wonder if they smell different.
A little bit?
Yeah.
I detect a slight difference. One was a little more tart, one was a little more sweet. But these 2 were the same. Which doesn't make sense. No, they're not that different. They're really not that different.
They smell similar enough, but there's slight differences that
Sure.
make you think, is that really a difference, or am I just imagining a difference because I'm looking for differences? And that's part of the fun of this game.
Now drink. First, it's very dry. A little bit of a fruit taste to it. It's certainly mead. Oh wow, this is going to be harder than I thought. With 6 of them, it's going to be difficult. There's a difference. I can't pinpoint it, and it's very minor.
I feel like, are we allowed to converse and discuss this?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this one has more astringency as
Yeah.
a finish.
Well, we're trying to come up with this together.
The upfront flavor of these 2 were very similar to me, but this one seems to have a more stringency.
Screw the rinsing your
Finish.
mouth each time. That's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Okay, my initial idea on this is the difference is so slight as to not really be that detectable. If you handed me one, wait 10 minutes and hand me another one, I would say they were the same thing. Across the board, there's almost no difference.
And that is really strange. I am experiencing the same thing. Let me get this last one.
I fully thought at least 2 of them, the outliers, the primary and in the conditioning, would have differences.
Because logic, at least the logic we were utilizing in figuring out how the flavor profiles would change would be like, if you ferment the fruit in primary, then you're fermenting the flavor of the fruit. And so it's going to be different than if you just add fruit in secondary when fermentation is done. But if you think about it, there's equal amounts of alcohol, or at least there should be relatively equal amounts of alcohol in both of those things. So isn't putting a fruit in an alcoholic substance for a period of time very similar in changing the flavors as fermenting that fruit? And I think this test has answered the question, and the answer is yes. Because if you think about it, when you're making an extract, you're extracting the flavor of something with a strong neutral spirit. And so the process of fermentation, you're kind of extracting that flavor through the process of fermentation.
However, even the one in conditioning phase probably fermented a little bit.
True.
Which probably throws off the test a little bit, I'll be honest.
Sure. I mean,
but the fact that the outcome is so close to the same thing, we did exactly what most people ask us about.
Yeah.
And I just went through and grouped them in twos. It was sort of a guess, but sort of, I'm really curious to see if I got it right.
All right, give me some water. Let me...
You verify my...
I'm going to verify. Like I know.
I did it quickly, but I think I detected slight differences. I mean, literally we're talking 1% differences here. This is, you had to taste them side by side or you would not know. Do they taste the same to you? Now, they could all be totally mixed matched.
These do not taste the same to me.
Really?
I feel like this one is significantly sweeter up front. And so I was trying to focus on that and try to find that in all of them. And I think that sweetness was in one of those two, but I couldn't tell which one.
I think those two go together.
All right.
I don't want to put this off anymore.
It is so difficult.
They are
it's
incredibly
like
similar.
You're searching, you're nitpicking, you're like, oh, is it
Yeah.
a little bit of sweeter up front? Is it a little bit tartar in the end? Is it...
They're so incredibly similar that I'm ready to say essentially there's no difference. Virtually no difference. Maybe long term, if left on the fruit longer in one or the other, there would be a difference. But the time we did, which is equal amounts of time on the fruit for all of them, except in both. The both actually had double the time on the fruit.
Sure.
Yeah, because it had fruit in the beginning and fruit at the end. So some of that fruit was in there for twice the amount of time.
But there's nothing
There's virtually no difference. That means it extracted everything it was going to. So let's just go through this. Let's see. I have a B.
So the one that I...
And a C.
The one that I said was the sweetest up front is a primary, which is shocking.
And then I have a P and a C.
And this is a B. So P and B.
So we did not get any of them right. They're so close to the same thing. But I love stuff like this because now if someone says, should I do it in primary or conditioning? The real factor is it a fruit or a spice, because I would assume the same thing would happen with spices, that might inhibit fermentation.
Yeah.
If it would inhibit fermentation, put it in conditioning, without a doubt.
Yeah, so this is making me think back to our Skeeter pea where we had to create the pH, or correct the pH to make it ferment. Forget that nonsense. Just put the lemon in conditioning and be done with it.
Well, what were you fermenting then? Because we fermented lemonade.
Well, yeah, in that case it was lemonade. So, but if you're doing a lemon wine, then do...
You're giving me ideas, and I don't want to give them away.
Okay.
Here you go. Drink up.
This is the mother beverage.
Yeah. If that tastes different, let me know. It should taste the same. Mm-hmm. Anyway, very interesting test. Happy to have this done because that was the 3 fermenters taken up.
Yeah, this took a lot of space.
And a lot of time.
A lot of real estate up in there.
It's holding up other brews that we want to get done.
I'm actually shocked by these results. I did not think it would be this similar, and actually, rather than being disappointed, which I thought I was initially going to be,
I'm inspired by it.
I'm pleased because now that opens up so many possibilities.
Gives options.
And I'm not restrained to when I add my fruit because ultimately it's not going to make a difference flavor-wise. So,
absolutely.
yay.
I'm with you. I love that. I think this was awesome. Anyway, if you guys like seeing tests like this, let me know what kind of tests you want to see in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching and have a great day.
Bye-bye.